Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Last time we were looking at chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, and today we're going to be moving on to chapter 4. And I gotta say, I'm excited to dig into this one. It's all about the yoga of knowledge. And, I love to jump right into the good stuff. So to kick things off, this chapter isn't just about, memorizing facts. It's about how we can use knowledge to actually improve our lives, make better choices, and just, generally have a more positive impact on the world around us.
You got it. It's not about becoming a walking encyclopedia or anything. It's about using what we know as a tool to actually create positive change.
I like that. A tool for positive change. That's a great way to put it. One thing that really stood out to me in this chapter is the emphasis on action. It's not enough to just sit around and think about things. You know what I mean? We have to actually put that knowledge into practice. So what do you think? Why is action so important?
Well, you know how they say knowledge without action is like having a blueprint but never actually building the house?
Mm,
It's in the building the actual implementation of knowledge where the real change happens. Even the text acknowledges that sometimes even really wise people can get tripped up on this whole action versus inaction thing. Figuring out the right course of action isn't always easy, but that's where the real growth happens.
makes sense. It's
Yeah.
easy to get stuck in that overthinking trap, right?
Yeah.
We can spend so much time thinking about what we should be doing that we never actually get around to doing anything. So how do we find that balance? How do we move from knowledge to action without getting stuck?
Great question. And the text actually gives us a few clues. One of the big ones is this concept of karma. Now, a lot of people misunderstand karma, but instead of thinking about it as some kind of cosmic scorecard, think of it more as the natural law of cause and effect. Every action we take, even the small ones, has consequences, both for ourselves and for the people around us.
So it's like a heightened sense of awareness. Like if we understand that our choices have a ripple effect, we might be more mindful of what we do.
It,
I'm starting to see how this all connects. But there's another concept in this chapter that I'm curious about. It's this word yajna. What's that all about?
yes, yajna. It's usually translated as sacrifice, which I know can sound a little intense, but the text isn't talking about, giving up all your possessions or anything like that.
So I don't have to give up my morning coffee.
Probably not every morning. Yajna in this context is more about offering your best self, your best effort in everything you do. It's about aiming for excellence even in those everyday tasks and recognizing that even small acts of service can make a difference.
Okay, I like that. So tying this back to knowledge, it seems like the text is saying that when our actions come from a place of understanding, even the little things become more meaningful.
That's it. And there's actually a line in the text that really highlights this. It's a superior to the sacrifice of material possessions is the sacrifice of knowledge. All actions in their entirety culminate in knowledge. It's basically saying that knowledge is the foundation for truly impactful action.
It makes you think about even simple things like choosing what to eat. It becomes more than just satisfying a craving when we understand the nutritional value of different foods and how they affect our bodies and minds.
Exactly, or how we interact with others. When we approach those interactions with understanding and empathy, we create more harmonious relationships.
So what's the takeaway here for our listeners? How can they start applying this wisdom in their own lives?
Well, the first step is realizing that knowledge is a journey. It's not a destination. It's about constantly seeking wisdom and guidance, whether it's from books, mentors, or even podcasts like this one.
Hold on. Are you plugging our show?
Maybe just a little. But my point is that there are so many resources out there to help us deepen our understanding. The key is being open to learning and challenging our own assumptions.
So it's about being humble, acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, and being willing to learn from others. This is starting to click for me. So we've got this ancient wisdom telling us to pair action with knowledge, to be mindful of our choices, and to actively seek out opportunities to learn and grow.
You got it. And remember, this wisdom is always there for us, guiding us towards a more fulfilling and impactful life.
Great points. Now I want to leave you with a thought to ponder. What's one area in your life where you could benefit from seeking a little more guidance or knowledge? Hold on to that thought and we'll be right back to continue our deep dive into Chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita.
So did that question get you thinking?
It did. Actually, it really did. It's amazing how just asking yourself that simple question can open up a whole new way of looking at things. But going back to the chapter, I was really struck by how Krishna talks about this ancient wisdom being passed down through generations of teachers.
Mm.
It wasn't like something that was just readily available to everyone. It had to be sought out and learned from those who already possessed it.
That's a really interesting point. And it speaks to the importance of mentorship and guidance. Finding those people who have already walked the path and can help us avoid some of the pitfalls along the way.
Yeah, it's like that saying, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, why struggle through something on your own when you can learn from someone who's already figured it out? It
Exactly.
reminds me of learning any new skill. Like, you wouldn't expect to become a master chef just by reading cookbooks, right? You need someone to show you the ropes, guide you, and help you avoid those kitchen disasters.
Absolutely. And cultivating wisdom and understanding is no different. We need those mentors, those guides, who can help us navigate the complexities of life and accelerate our growth.
But how do we find those mentors? It's not like there's a directory of wise people out there.
Sometimes they show up in our lives unexpectedly. A teacher, a friend, a family member who offers a different perspective or challenges us to think outside the box.
But what if we don't have those people readily available in our lives? What then?
Then we have to be proactive and seek them out. It could be through books, workshops, courses, online communities, or even, as I mentioned earlier, podcasts that align with our values and goals.
Right.
The important thing is to be intentional about our personal growth and to actively seek out the resources that will support us on that journey.
So it's like we're curating our own personal library of wisdom, carefully selecting the sources that will nourish our minds and guide our actions.
Exactly. And just like Krishna emphasized the importance of action, this pursuit of knowledge is an active one. It requires effort, intentionality, and a willingness to step outside our comfort zones.
Okay, so we've talked about action mentorship, actively seeking knowledge.
Yeah.
Anything else we should keep in mind as we're on this path?
One more crucial element that Chapter 4 highlights is humility.
Humility.
Yes, it's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers
Mhm.
and approaching learning with an open mind, a willingness to be wrong.
You know, that reminds me of that quote. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing.
Powerful quote, right? That sense of humility allows us to be receptive to new ideas and to constantly expand our understanding.
It's making me realize how important it is to be okay with admitting when we're wrong and to learn from our mistakes.
Absolutely. The text even suggests that mistakes can be valuable teachers if we approach them with a willingness to learn and grow. I mean, after all, every expert was once a beginner, right?
I like that perspective. It takes the pressure off of having to be perfect all the time and allows us to embrace the process of learning and growth.
Exactly. It's about embracing the journey, knowing that it's ongoing and ever evolving. There will be stumbles and setbacks along the way, but it's those experiences that shape and refine our understanding.
It sounds like this chapter is giving us a roadmap for navigating life with more wisdom and intention. From the importance of action to the role of mentors and the power of humility, it's equipping us with practical tools for personal growth.
You said it. And what's incredible is that this ancient wisdom is still so relevant today, even in our modern world.
It really speaks to the timelessness of these principles. But wait a minute, we're not quite done yet, are we?
Not quite. There's one more piece of this puzzle we need to explore. In the next part, we'll dive into the connection between knowledge and liberation and how understanding this link can completely transform how we experience the world.
That sounds fascinating. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the final part of our deep dive into Chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into Chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. We've covered a lot of ground already talking about action mentorship and even humility. But right before the book, you mentioned this idea of liberation. What does that mean in this context?
That's where this chapter gets really fascinating. You remember how we talked about all actions ultimately leading to knowledge? Well, Chapter 4 takes that idea a step further and suggests that the ultimate goal of knowledge is liberation.
Liberation. Okay, but what exactly are we being liberated from? It's like freedom from, the limitations and suffering that can come from ignorance. When we act out of ignorance, we're more likely to make choices that don't really serve us or the people around us. But when our actions are rooted in knowledge and wisdom, we're more likely to create positive experiences and outcomes for ourselves and others.
So it's about knowledge empowering us to make choices that lead to a more fulfilling life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this idea of liberation that Chapter 4 talks about can be seen as a state of inner peace and freedom that comes from living in alignment with our highest understanding. It's about breaking free from limitations and stepping into our full potential.
That's a powerful concept. It's not just about knowing things for the sake of knowing them. It's about using that knowledge to create a better life for ourselves and for everyone around us.
Exactly. And remember, this is an ongoing journey. We're constantly learning, growing, refining our understanding, and making adjustments along the way. It's a process of continuous self-improvement.
So it's like a continuous feedback loop.
Yeah.
We see the results we learn from those experiences, and then we adjust our course.
Exactly. The more we engage in this cycle, the more effectively we can navigate the ups and downs of life.
I'm really struck by how practical and relevant this ancient wisdom is. It's not just some abstract philosophy. It's a guidebook for living a more fulfilling life.
And that's the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. These timeless insights are just as applicable today as they were thousands of years ago.
So as we wrap up our exploration of Chapter 4, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
Remember this. Knowledge is power, but only when it's put into action. Seek out wisdom, cultivate understanding, and let that knowledge guide your actions in the world. By doing so, you'll not only create a more fulfilling life for yourself, but also contribute to a more positive and harmonious world for everyone.
That's a great message to end on. Thanks so much for guiding us through this deep dive into Chapter 4. It's been a truly enlightening experience.
My pleasure. It's always a joy to explore these timeless teachings.
And to our listeners, our exploration of the Bhagavad Gita doesn't end here. We'll be back next time with a deep dive into Chapter 5, where we'll explore the balance between renunciation and action. Until then, keep seeking knowledge, keep taking action, and keep striving to live your best life. We'll see you back here soon for another deep dive.